Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome back, High Strangeness listeners. This is part 2 of our Lone Believers Alien Abduction episode with experiencer and author James Kelly. And this is a High Strangeness episode. We will pick up where we left off last on episode 61.
You know, when you spiritually, when you're out of body, you go, oh, you know, you just see everything's enhanced, you know. So,
and if I can,
well, you know, this reminds me a little bit of, not to go here, but just to bring it up, some near-death experiences where there is out-of-body experience, the increased awareness of everything around you and the brightness of things. This is what it reminds me of.
Yes.
So I wonder if there's some commonalities there. When
you break
free from the
I mean,
flesh.
it could be. All my experiences have been very, where I know I was there, very tangible type of a thing. But just kind of help your viewers bring perspective in. I'll jump a little ahead, like maybe 50 years or more ahead.
Okay.
When I was small, I loved to play with Legos, and it was my most favorite thing in the entire world because I didn't have many friends that I could talk to. And so I would just sit in my bedroom and play with Legos and talk to my Hulk doll because I could tell him about all my experiences, and he would never judge me or anything. He would just listen, and I loved him so much. And I had, so I built this spaceship out of Legos, and I cherished it. And I used to fly it around to pretend I was in space and doing all of these things. And then I was given for my birthday a baseball card. And I cherished it. And I kept it in my dresser, and I kept it pristine. And I'd always kept it in a plastic thing to keep it where it needed to be. Anyway, and this was in my childhood. And during my childhood, I lost these things. I don't know what happened to them. They just vanished. I thought, well, maybe my mom gave them away to my nephews or somebody. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up just building new ships and doing other things with Legos, but it wasn't the same because this was my very special ship. Well, it's about a year ago, I had this experience at night where I felt like somebody was talking to me. And I just felt somebody saying my name, and I thought, I'm dreaming. Maybe I had too much dinner or something before I went to bed, and I'm just dreaming. And then I kept being woken up. Like I could feel somebody touching my face, almost like your wife or your mom or somebody would touch your face very kindly or softly. And I'd go back to sleep again, and then I heard, Milo, it's Mama. And I immediately woke up, and I started to hear things. And I don't remember quite what was said, but then I went back to sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and I'm like, oh, geez, what a night. I'll never eat that late. And so I got up, showered, got dressed, came back over, and I'm like, Holly, come here. She goes, what? I'm like, look, on my nightstand was the Lego Starship and the baseball card that I had lost when I was a child. And they were in pristine condition, and the only thing I could figure is I took them when I was on a ship, and I left them there, and Lauren had brought them back to me. And so when they say, well, you know, is it physical? Is it spiritual? It was definitely a physical experience of being there.
That's confirmation, point blank, you know, that stuff like this happens, you know. And the same thing with my wife. She was dating me at the time. She came in, stayed overnight, and she had this, you know, really expensive perfume, you know. So the women know exactly where her perfume's at, you know. She had this overnight bag, you know. And she got up one next morning and goes, Fred, my perfume's gone. Because I told her, I said, aliens are here and they like to sneak stuff away from you.
Yeah,
You know,
sometimes.
and sure enough, her, very valuable, perfume was gone. I said, well, evidently they're trying to tell you, that you've had experiences as well, but now you're with me because I can identify that this is what happened. Sure enough, 3 days later, she came in, stayed overnight again, brought her bag. Guess what? She opened her bag, and there it was, right in her bag,
Mm,
right in
Yeah,
her bag, right on top. Like, you know,
yes. Yeah.
stuff like that
it's
happens
crazy.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is not a
Keeps you
confirmation for
alert, doesn't
James.
it?
This is
Yeah,
confirmation for James, validation for James too. Just say those are the two things I lost. And these are way back when. So this is like
Right.
you're not dreaming. This is experiences. This is something that was confirmation. They show up. It's like where'd they go? That's been 50 some years later, and then they show up. That is you can't whitewash that.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things where
yeah,
it's like it's not from last year, it's not from 2 years ago. It's, something that would have been falling apart,
yeah.
degraded
So just
color or whatever.
Yep,
And here it is in
absolutely.
pristine shape.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, you
it's
got him,
probably what.
James?
sorry.
What's that?
Yeah,
Have you got
yeah,
the card and the crap?
yeah.
Oh, cool.
So
Oh, he has it. We're going to
yeah.
see it, people. We're going to see it.
Um, so this is my Lego craft. I loved it. It was my most favorite possession that I had.
The kid.
And then my baseball card that you can't really, sorry, it's kind of real blurry.
There it is, right there.
But yeah,
Just
but it's
turn it. Yeah,
actually
there
in
you go.
pristine condition, and it's his rookie card. I don't have my glasses. Sorry, I'm 58 years old now. But growing up, it was one of my prized possessions.
Who's the baseball player?
You had asked me to read.
Who's the
Hang
baseball
on.
player?
Let me get my glasses on. Fred asked the tough questions. Earl
I know.
Cunningham.
Oh, don't know.
Um, so, yeah. So, um,
Hmm.
this converted my wife. And my wife
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
she'd always say, I believe that you believe, but I believe you 10%. And, I understand that and how things happen. But when this happened, it dramatically jumped up. So,
Right.
Well, James's wife.
yeah.
She's
Sorry.
she's a uh, in the paranormal. And so if this would just appear out of the blue, like where'd that come from?
Yeah. Maybe this was as much for her as anything, so that
Oh,
she
absolutely.
could,
It could be because
kind of get that.
after my experiences being on Arcturia with Lauren and Sorry and stuff, I found out that my wife Holly's name is Satari. It's not Holly. It's Satari. I told her that, and she didn't like me telling her that, so I haven't brought it up again. So, but they're
Yeah.
very aware of Holly.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry to get off the track there.
No, this is great. Thanks for sharing that. And the visual's helpful. I'm sure people will be going, whoa, Okay. I'm going to let you get back to it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now, that was a
Yeah.
great experience being with Lauren and finding out who my star seed mother and sister are. And that was great. And nothing happened. And I was just cherished that experience until I was 8 years old. Once I turned 8 years old, the nightmare started. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard even now to talk about. Growing up, we had a basement, a finished basement, and I'd go down there and play and do things. And I wasn't very comfortable down there. I always felt like something was watching me down there. And I kept having dreams that people would be coming, like ghostly people white, ghostly, misty people would be coming out of our furnace down in our basement. And they would come and hurt me. And I remember having those dreams. And it bothered me. And of course, my mom was no help because she would always just refer back to the dreams. And one night when I was 8 years old, I was in bed. I got ready and got my Hulk pajamas on. You can kind of see there's a theme going on with me with Hulk and everything. Got ready,
Yes.
Brushed my teeth, got ready for bed, and got into bed. And I was just lying there. And as a little kid, I thought in my mind, if I cover my head and look towards the wall by my bed, they can't see me. And I know that's very irrational thinking, but as a child, it's very normal thinking. And when I was lying there at night, I heard footsteps, several footsteps coming down the hall. And I thought, well, it's my parents, because their bedroom was right next to mine. But it was late at night, and I'm like, that's strange that my parents would be up that late. I'm like, oh, okay. And I just tried to go back to sleep again, and I fell asleep again, and then I heard my doorknob on my bed turning back and forth. The door didn't open, but the doorknob turned. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is it monsters? Are they coming to get me? And I started to freak out a little, and I covered my head over, and I was just underneath there, and then everything went quiet. And then soon as I pulled the covers up off my head and looked a little bit, I noticed the door opened. And my mom and dad would always leave the hall light on. So when I went to the bathroom, I could just go to the bathroom. And I could see them, 3 grays, standing there. Typical grays, just standing there. And they walked.
They always come in
crazy
threes.
grays. And they came in, and I was terrified. I did not have the same feeling that I had with Lauren and the Arcturians. It was a feeling of dread, a feeling of horror, that I did not want to be there. And they walked up to me, not saying a word, and grabbed onto me and tried me to pull me out of bed. And I remember telling them, what do you want with me? And one of them grabbed me and just pushed me down in bed. And I couldn't move. All I could move was my eyes. It was, my whole body was like my nervous system was completely shut off. I couldn't move my hands, my fingers, nothing. And they actually picked me up out of bed, and I was levitating on this. It wasn't tangible. It almost seemed like a cloudy, misty thing that I was on, and they were actually taking me out of my bedroom. And like I said, my bedroom was right next to my parents, and I thought, oh my gosh, great, they're going to take me by my dad. My dad's going to come out, and everything's going to be fine. He's going to save me. That didn't happen. They took me from my bedroom, right past my parents, through our living room, through our kitchen, down the stairs, and guess where they took me? Right through a white portal, right into the right through the furnace room. And as I went through the furnace room, immediately I was on their ship. And when I was on their ship, it wasn't a pleasant experience. It wasn't like a feeling that I had before. They took me off the table and put me hard, not soft, like hard, onto a surgical stainless steel table, strapped down my feet and my hands. And then before that, they took off my pajamas, so I was completely naked. And I was strapped down there, horrified that this was happening. And the only thing I could think of was, somebody please come and save me. Please, please, somebody. And nobody was listening. And I thought for sure Lauren would come and help me. That it didn't happen. And while I was lying there, I wasn't frozen anymore. I could actually move, and I could move my head back and forth and see what was going on. and I could see these little grays frantically moving all around, doing things. And in the ship, the floor was black, the walls were dark gray. There wasn't any windows, it was just solid gray room. And in the bottom right corner of the room, there was big monitors that I could see all of my functions on. I could see my circulation, I could see my organs, I could see everything going on with that. And while I was lying there, I was just, like I said, I was terrified. And then a very tall gray came in. And you can tell that he was the boss. He wasn't the little shorter grays, he was the boss. And as they came in, he walked over, looked at me, and he reached up, grabbed something that was a long cylinder, like a tube, and he grabbed my head and stuck that thing up my nose. And as he stuck it up my nose, I felt this crunch. And as I did that, all the fluid from my head ran out. And it was being collected in this jar. And then I'm like, please take it out, it's hurting me, please. And he was just ignoring me, and he took it out finally and took the container and set it aside and then just looked at me. And if you can imagine closing your eyes, being alone in a room, and then opening your eyes and having a head of a gray 2 inches from your face, that was the terror that I was going to.
Yeah.
And as soon as they took that sample, they took a sample on my leg where they held my leg down, shoved the needle into my leg until I felt it go into my bone, and I was screaming in pain. I'm like, please stop, please. And I was just crying, sobbing, all the little kids get sobbing and they just can't stop. And I just felt it going to my bone. And they took the sample out. As they took the sample out, I was really hurting, and he must have had pity on me because he put his hand on my chest, and I felt fine. I felt calm. I didn't feel pain anymore. And I asked him, why are you doing this to me? And he says, because I need your DNA, because you're a star child. And I'm like, oh, that was crazy to be able to be on the craft and experience that. And then they took samples of sperm and different sort of things as well. And as they were doing all that, it took several hours. And then the next thing I remember is being back in my room. And I was there, and I woke up, and I thought, oh, I need to look at my pajamas. Do I have my pajamas on still? And sure enough, I had my pajamas on, and I kind of hurt in my groin area. So I went out of bed, opened the door, went to the bathroom, and as I went to the bathroom, I was peeing blood. And I'm like, oh, that's probably when they were taking samples. But to this day, I have what's called CFS leaks, where it's a cerebral spinal fluid leak, where I leak my brain fluid out of my nose. And when I have this, the only thing I can describe the pain as is having a kidney stone pain in your head. It's so bad that I have to go to the emergency room. And each time I go to the emergency room, the doctor's like, have you been in a car accident? Have you been in a motorcycle and some trauma? I'm like, no. He goes, well, this only happens if you've had trauma to your sinuses area. And I did have a surgery later on, and the surgeon said that he could see my brain that was sitting in my sinuses, where there was a massive area there that wasn't, it would give way and stop and give way, so I constantly draining out. And he didn't have any answer for it. He was asking, did you have an accident? Did you do all this? But that's kind of like the highlights of being at the Grays. I call the furnace people. And that's just an experience of being 8 years old, and throughout my entire life, they have been taking me until I learned how to use telepathy to block them. And that came when I was about 13 years old. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good. I want to get to that after this. Okay.
It's okay.
More
I love them.
questions. Okay. Yeah. This is amazing. So okay, the Greys. They were treating you like, cattle, or basically some specimen to be checked, and really showed no mercy, except for at that one point when you were probably at the extent of pain where they just said, we need to, either it was compassion or they just
Right.
needed
Yeah.
to keep you quiet.
I think it was keeping
basically.
me quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. So these Greys, now you've just mentioned that they've come back, or they tried to come back in future times from this 8-year-old time period. Do you think? Why do you think they found you? Why do you think they? Do you have any insight into that? Like, is there any feeling that you have, as for, you have this amazing experience, and now you have this really terrible experience, and what opened you up to that? Is there something that happens when you are experiencing something that it now makes you available to other entities, or
Yeah, I was
anything like
told
that?
since I'm a star child that part of my DNA is different.
Okay.
I actually witnessed that when I was abducted before. When I was looking at one of the charts, the monitors, you could see the spiral DNA, the helix, but then you'd see several places in my DNA that were bright yellow. And that's what they were focusing on. So when I had another opportunity to be with Lauren, I asked her about that, and they said they want my DNA because I'm a star child, because they needed more advanced DNA because the human's DNA is not working any longer. It's defective, they were saying.
Interesting. So tell me if I'm wrong, I just remember reading something before. Arcturians are a higher level species. And do you think that the Greys are... what's that interaction between the two? Do you ever have a feeling for that? Or has there ever been a communication where you were... where they shared with you their relationship between the Greys and the Arcturians? Like, do they feel one way or
Yes,
another
very
towards
much
each
so.
other?
They do not like them at all. And I need to say that not all Greys are mean. There is Greys who are just like people. Some people are mean, some are not. But the Arcturians are very far advanced. So if their creator is on a dimensional intelligence of 15, the Arcturians are on a 12. And I've been told by Lauren that they were the first creation. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate email for this, but they were the first beings that were created to be able to do that. And the Arcturians are part of the Galactic Council. The Council is like the Palladians, the Laurens, the Arcturians, the Noor, a bunch of different races that are here to save the galaxy. I know it sounds kind of Star Wars-ish, but they're here to protect all of us, especially Earth. And now the Greys and the Reptilians or stuff, they belong to a different group that have a low functioning vibration. They're more, I wouldn't say evil, but they have a different way of looking at things. They're not there to protect us. They treat us as like experiments. We are an experiment on Earth that went wrong.
Yeah.
And they have no problem doing that. So it's kind of like Star Trek, where there's good people and there's evil people. I hate to take it down to that level, but that's how people can understand it.
It's a good,
like
it's a good
yeah.
way to relate to it. Yeah.
Yeah, like the Dracos and the Reptilians are the ones that are messing with our politics and things of that control and manipulation aspect of it. So we have to, they are there to show us that we are superior, so to speak, but we have to build our own self-confidence and our own supremacy of who we are as, divine entities, we're part of the divine. We have that spark, which some of the archons or some of the Greys, they don't have that capability of having the divine spark within them. So that's another reason why they come to us. So just because we're human doesn't mean this is just a body, and we put our consciousness and our soul into other dimensional realms and other beings, and so uh, that comes about through a little more awareness that we're not just humans. We can be other entities of and other planets and other star systems. So
Yeah,
that just spreads your thoughts out a little bit more.
yeah, yeah. Um, okay, I can't help but to ask this question. You talked about a creator being, level 15 or something, and then the Arcturians are, the closest to that. Has there ever been any communication or sharing of information from the Arcturians about a creator or about something like that? Like, what's their? You make
Yeah.
reference to it. So
Yeah.
was it ever brought up? What do they share about that kind of being, presence,
Yeah,
or whatever
Lauren,
he or she is?
and sorry, they teach me all the time to have gratitude for everything that I have. Gratitude is the big thing, and they always talk about the Creator. The Creator created this. The Creator created the universe. They're very much like us, where they believe in the Creator. The Creator created them, so their spiritual, whatever their spiritual knowledge is from that. And they talk to me a lot about that. How I need to have peace. I need to have love. I need to treat other fellow earthlings, I guess, or beings with love and respect. The same thing that we do is the Christian religion. Love one each other, love the neighbor, have peace for one another, have gratitude for what we have. So they teach us the same teachings that you're probably learning in Sunday school or at your meetings. Yeah.
Yeah. The spiritual leaders on this planet that have existed in the past, are they in any relation to Arcturians, or are they connected in some way? And I'm asking you a question. This is not your
Curious
abduction
about it.
experience. I'm just curious because they've shared knowledge with you, and I'm just curious.
From my
Yeah.
experiences, the knowledge of clergy here on the earth are just that. It's the knowledge of men, that they try to interpret the writings and different sort of thing the best way they can, to worship God and to worship, that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't get into.
And again, it could be some of the knowledge. Yeah, it could be again some of the Anunnaki that came in.
Yeah.
They gave us a lot of wisdom and understanding of that nature and who built the pyramids
Yeah.
and the various different monuments here on Earth. The Incas and things of that nature. I mean, we're just learning about the Incas. I just heard that the Incas were actually originally from, guess where? Utah. On the Blind Frog Ranch, and these guys they found all this gold, and they're in Utah, and right there at Blind Frog Ranch is that was their big beginning, and they went down south, and then they said, why are they bringing all the way up to Utah? Because that's where they originated from. How strange is that?
That's a whole topic on its own.
So
The Eek and the Mayan, we'll just kind of put that on the back burner. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry, I
It's okay.
kind of pulled you away from that, but I mean, this is you have there's a big there's a big difference, right, between the Arcturians and then the Greys, and thanks for clarifying that they're not all scary like that, but two very different experiences and only 2 years apart in your life. That's crazy. How did that affect you? Like, you mentioned that you were hoping for some protection or deliverance from the Arcturians, and it didn't happen. So how did you feel?
I was
Were you
very
upset
upset.
about that, or
I
what
was very
happened
upset. I
after
felt like
that?
a kid. I was betrayed. Because I trusted them and I thought that they would come and save me, but they didn't. So it was very hard for me as a child, and there's a lot of times that I would just sit in my bedroom and just cry. I had a closet and I'd just gather up my Hulk doll, and I would just sit in there and cry because I had nobody to talk to. No one would believe me about this, not even my parents, not even my sister. And so I had nobody to talk to. And when these experiences would happen, and I couldn't talk to anybody, all I did is internalize it. And the more it happened, the more it internalized to it become deeper and deeper and deeper. And I know it's not very manly to cry, but I had no other alternative. I had no out but to do that. And it wasn't just crying; it was pleading. You know, why am I doing it? And I thought when I was growing up, I talk about this in my book, is why am I broken? How come my friends are not being taken? How come, other people in my neighborhood aren't being taken? Why am I being picked on?
Right.
And it's very hard. And yeah, I'm getting emotional just kind of
Especially for
just
a young
thinking about
person.
it. It was very hard, a way of growing up that way. So
Yeah. Interesting.
yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Okay, what
There's a
happens?
construct though too, here, Tony, that when James talked about he was wanting Lauren to come and help him.
Fred
when
was
the time
talking about
comes.
being the victim. You know, you feel that way because you have nobody to talk to, and then you just start becoming the martyr.
Right.
That's how I felt. I'm the martyr now because I have nobody to share this with, and just all these traumatic experiences that made me who I am. Like after this one experience with the Greys that I call the furnace people, sometime later, it happened again to me, where this time I was so scared. Now imagine, I think I'm around 10. I think I'm around 9 or 10. I was sleeping in my parents' bed, and my mom and dad would actually physically take me to bed, turn down their covers, and I would sleep in their bed until I fell asleep, and then they would take me into my room because I was that terrified. And then one night I said, okay, and my dad's like, hey, you're getting too old, dude. You need to stop this. Like dads do. They have no compassion for nothing. And growing, my dad was in the military, and, he's like, you need to suck it up. And my mom's like, no, it's okay, because moms are soft. And so I remember falling asleep in the bed, and I awoke in my bed I heard something. And in my mind, what's the first thing I think about? The furnace people are coming to get me. So I got up, walked to my parents' room, woke my mom up and said, please, can I sleep with you? And she's like, honey, go back to bed. I'm like, please, please, please. Then I woke my dad up, and he got mad at me. He's like, go back to bed. You're old enough. You should be sleeping on your own. I'm like, just please. And I think they noticed that I was scared. My voice had some terror in it. I was scared. And so my mom and dad, this California king, it's not like I couldn't fit. They could put me in there and not even know I was there. So my mom got out and said, yes, get in the middle. So here I am smashed between my dad on the left-hand side and my mom on the right-hand side. And I felt very safe because I was there, and I had the covers up, and I fell asleep. But then I just felt something, and I awoken. And as I awoken, I noticed 3 Greys, the same Greys, standing at the foot of my mom and my dad's bed. And I was completely terrified. And I'm like, no, you're not taking me, you're not taking me. And one of them reached underneath the covers and grabbed my ankle and started pulling me out of the bed. Well, I grabbed a hold of my mom's arm. I said, no, no. And I started screaming, thinking that my parents would wake up. And they didn't wake up. They just were there. And they kept pulling me harder. I'm like, no, you're not taking me, you're not taking me. And I kept holding my mom and dad's hand, and that what kept me from going out of the bed. And then they said, if you do not let go, we will murder both of your parents. And I saw a vision in my mind of them stabbing my parents to death. And when I saw that vision, I let go, and they grabbed me. Of course, took me downstairs through the polar portal, put me on the ship, and did horrible, horrible experiments to me. Just horrible experiments, and then brought me back to where I was.
James, were these the same types of experiments, or were they doing something different each time?
Each time I was abducted by the Greys, it was a different experience. This time, it was the same ship. I was on the same table. They looked the same. I mean, it could have been different, but they looked the same. Mm-hmm. But this time, they were shoving the probe into my heart. And they were taking specimens of my heart and organs and things like that. And when I was in my teens, I used to wrestle, and I had a hard time breathing all the time. They thought I had asthma, and I just kind of blew it off. And then later, as I was older and I was married, I found out I couldn't run. I was just getting winded. And finally, I went to a heart doctor, cardiologist, and they said they scanned with a bubble test. Bubble test is when they get 2 syringes and they create bubbles in the fluid, and they send it through your cardiovascular system. And then they have a scanner that looks at it. And the doctor says that they had the biggest hole in my heart, in the middle of my heart, that he's ever seen in his whole career. And he was deeply concerned, so they had to go in and do surgery to fix the hole in my heart. And so everything that's happening, I wouldn't say documentation, but I have physical evidence from what they did to me as the result of what they did to me. And so going on.
Yes. So let me make sure I understand. So the result of some of the things they did caused some medical conditions for you. I'm going to have to ask this question because people will wonder, were there other puncture wounds or anything like that you ever noticed from some of these other things that they've done, or were they able to conceal it, cover it?
They usually concealed it, covered it, or healed it. But sometimes, like I said, I'd go to the bathroom and I would pee blood. Sometimes I would have a bruise in a weird place, and I'm like, I remember that, and things like that. But it was nothing that was really evident until later on. So,
the peeing of blood, was it just the first time you came back? Or
no, it was the first time I came back. Because...
Okay. So not duplicatable. You couldn't say, look, Mom or Dad, I'm peeing blood again.
Yeah, I think it was a result of a fairly large needle in a 6-year-old boy that doesn't, kind of belong there. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I'd be like, hey, what's going on here? 2 gray appearances. I want the
yes,
back.
And that does happen when I'm 13. So it's a different experience because now I'm being taught by other beings, like Orla. Orla is a Noor. She has white skin and beautiful golden eyes, long white hair, who taught me how to keep the Greys away from me telepathically and things like that. So, yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this: Noor, is this a species?
No, that's a species. It's a species. They're called Noor-E, but they're Noor. Their species is Noor, and they're a lot like the Palladians and Arcturians, where they believe in spirituality and higher thought and things like that. So they belong to the Galactic Council of planets as well.
So this next interaction you have with Noor, the Noor, this is not in conjunction with the Palladians. They were actually sent
to receive me, to take me, to train me, and it's a fairly long story and how it went on and different sort of things, but. It's in the book. I'd much rather people, to read it in the book because it goes into such finite detail of how I was feeling as a 13-year-old and seeing portals and having beautiful women. I don't know why they're all beautiful women, but I'm not complaining. But yeah,
I was going to say, if you're going to have it that way,
it's a good way to have it.
It's a good way to have it.
These beings coming out of these portals and things like that. So, I mean. It was a very good experience. I learned a lot. And so when the Greys were coming back to me, later, after I learned how to telepathically block them, they would appear to me and want to take me, and I would just stand up. I'd say, "You're not taking me anywhere," and telepathically I would push them, and they would fall down, and they would just scamper off, and they would take off through the portal, and they had no power over me. They tried to do the whole mind thing, and they couldn't do it. Once I learned that as a higher consciousness, then I stopped having experiences with grays. Yeah.
Okay, so this interaction, the Noor, was this multiple times now where they are going to teach you this?
Yeah, I was there for over 3 days, on their planet for over 3 days.
Wow.
And I actually was staying in Orla's house and being trained not only physically but mentally on how to do these things. One of the things was that when I was with her on her planet, she called it the training courtyard, but it was a courtyard, but it had plants, and these plants were living. They would react off of me, where I could go up and put my hand next to them, and they would bend to me like they wanted to touch me. And it was a very, good experience. And then she would pretend that she was a gray telepathy, how she was getting into my mind, and I had to learn how to push her away. And she would put like silver orbs, things behind her back. And one day when I was there, she thought she was being tricky, and she put it behind her back, and I could see it. It was in her left hand. But then she switched, and she put it in her right hand. I'm like, "Oh, wait, it's in your right hand." She goes, "Okay." And then she started, doing things on a higher level type of a thing. So great experience with that. I don't want to do a book spoiler because I want people to buy the book. But that is a very long experience. I was there for about 3 days with her. And
so let's get some general pieces out of this, and leaving the details for the book. So the Noor, how did they know to help you and prepare you, or is this just something they do when they interact with somebody? Like, did they know this young man is having problems with the grays? Let me teach you. Or I'm just wondering, like, the fact that they came into the picture and taught you this is awesome for you. And was it something, how were they cued off to do it, or this was just something they do when they interact with people, is to teach them how to...
Well, when she came through the portal, I didn't know who she was. But she later told me, because I wasn't going to go with her. I'm like, "Oh, great, I don't know who you are." But she says that she has come to receive me, and Lauren has told her to come. So Lauren had instructed her to come and get me to be able to learn how to deal with the grays. And so right now, as I look back, I think Lauren did hear me, but she probably thought, "Okay, now is not the right time. I will come and receive you later and teach you." And so that's how I look at it, that she didn't abandon me. She was just unanswered prayers is, I guess, a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because it seems like their way is not violence, if I'm understanding correctly. So they were not going to come down and confront probably the grays, but they're going to teach you how to do what you need to do.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement?
Really, with the agreement that they made with Eisenhower back in the 1950s, and that's another podcast to begin with, they told them that we will not interfere, and they being in the Galactic Council, they can't interfere with what's going on here on Earth, time-wise or government-wise or things like that. And so they're trying to help us, but in a very more of a subtle way.
Yeah. Okay, so recapping here, near the end of
it's been 2 hours?
2, we've got almost, that's okay. It's great information. Arcturians, Starseed, and also the Grazer. coming a couple of times to really menace you, bother you. And then Noor comes and helps you, empowers you to be able to do what you need to repel the Greys. And this is where we are at the end of hour 2.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.